a philosopher, and you will see where I'm going with all of this in a moment, bear with me. He quotes a philosopher by the name of Alistair MacIntyre, who has a book called After Virtue. And he says that if human life is made meaningless, if you as a human being, you now have no meaning connected to God, you are just an earthly being, then there is no accountability. And what is the meaning of virtue? What is the meaning of morality? None of these things mean anything anymore when you remove God from the equation. And he said that when you forget the reason why certain things were forbidden in your culture, you forget the taboos. You forget right and wrong. And morality comes crashing down. And he gives an example of the Polynesian communities and how they had forgotten the reason why they had taboos and morality, and so it all disappeared. English seamen, Alistair MacIntyre, he said, made their way to Polynesia. Polynesia is, of course, a sub-region of Oceania that is made up of around 1,000 islands. New Zealand and Tonga and Samoa, the South and Central Pacific Ocean. This is called, Polynesia is there. So he said the English seamen, they made their way to Polynesia, and they were amazed because they saw that there was such a contradiction in their behavior. On one hand, they were really lax when it comes to sexual misconduct. Promiscuity was everywhere, fornication. And on the other end, they had this taboo, this forbidden custom that men and women cannot eat together. So on one end, there was promiscuity and adultery, and on the other end, strange men and women, they were not allowed to eat together. So when these English seamen, they asked them, how is it that this is the case? You're not allowed to eat together. They couldn't give them a solid answer. They said, it's just taboo. Taboo, yani it's forbidden. It's our morality. Why? Don't really know. They pushed them for answers. They inquired a little bit more, and they found that they had actually completely forgotten why men and women were not allowed to eat together. They just do it. Kingsnorth, he says, because a vacuum, because a space was left open in Polynesia, and nature hates empty spaces, it has to fill it with something. The English seamen were able to arrive at Polynesia and install Protestant Christianity, no issues. Because there was no resistance, there was no culture, there was no morality, there was no sacred order to bring it all together. So they were able to take anything. Why do I mention this? Because the author, Kingsnorth, he goes on to say that when a culture or a society reaches a point where it begins to forget why certain things were right and wrong, it forgets morality, because the religion is now gone, it becomes like a domino effect. One push, one shove, and everything comes crashing down one after the other. And he said, this is where we are today in the West. He said, our taboos that used to hold us together, our morality, our virtue has disappeared. It has crumbled. There's an empty space now waiting to be taken by someone. And he said, don't you dare think or assume that this is another religion or a culture from outside that came into the West and changed us and converted us. He said, no, this is our doing. This is our behavior. We chose this way. He said, since the 1960s, all of our forbidden things and our customs and our morality has been tumbling down one after the other. And we did this, nobody else. And then he goes on to say that we've been trying to rebuild now this idea of morality. We're trying to resurrect it. Since the Enlightenment, the 1800s, we've been trying to rebuild this idea of morality. But for the first time in Western history, they're trying to build, he says, a morality that is disconnected from God. A morality that is based upon man. So he said, if morality is going to be judged by what you think is right, not God Almighty, who are you accountable? He said, nobody. Who is the final arbiter now if you are the one who says everything and decides everything? And he goes on to say towards the end of the article that at the heart of every culture there is a throne. At the heart of every civilization is a throne. And whoever sits on that throne becomes the force which you take your instruction from. He said, in the West, that used to be God Almighty. And today in modernity, we have removed God, astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayh, and we have placed the human being there instead. We have removed religion, cut it out from our lives, and instead we have installed man. We have installed, and he says, democracy, liberalism, freedoms, your rights. He said, now the modern day religion is market worship and capitalism. This is what governs our thoughts. And look at Brexit. What were the conversations that people were having about whether we should remain or whether we should leave? It was nothing to do with religion or God or morality or ethics or family. No. It was all about dunya. It's about worldly matters. It's about race. It's about money. Those who wanted to leave the EU, what were they saying, the leavers? We want our independence. We want to protect our borders. It's us. It's our race. And those who wanted to remain in the EU, what was their argument? Economy, mobile phone roaming charges. This is the talk. No one's talking about family. That's no longer part of the Western discussion. No one's talking about God, religion, worship. It's about market worship. And he says, therefore, the modern man, these are his words, the modern man has become a broken worshipper before the idol of progress, he calls it. Cut out, no center, no direction, no vision, no future. And there is a vacuum, and the West is waiting, he says, for someone to fill it. And then he quotes McIntyre, who said, listen to these words, this is the conclusion. He said that the West today is waiting for a new and a very different Saint Benedict. Saint Benedict, an Italian Catholic monk, who was considered to be a religious reformer with the Catholics. He said, today the West is waiting for a new and a very different Saint Benedict. In the conclusion of the article, King's North, he says that the West is not short on ideas, is not short on weaponry, is not short on insults, and it's not short on machines. The West is very short on saints. That's the end of the article.